Hello, welcome back to Halo Fleet Battles Week on Fleet Signal. My name is Alex, and today I'm going to take a look at the rules and also the Fall of Reach campaign guide as well. This will be a sort of like a flick through slash discussion slash first look kind of thing, just to show you, how the rules work, what the books look like, that kind of thing. So yeah, let's start. Okay, so let's check out the core rulebook for Halo and see how the rules work, see what the book looks like. On the front you've got the front cover, core rulebook, back, just, tells you what the book is, blah blah blah. And let's open it up. Some nice Covenant fleet photography there. And the usual acknowledgements and thanks and stuff. There's a lot of acknowledgements to 343 Industries at the front here because, they were pretty instrumental in helping to, make this game. Got the contents there. We've got a little bit of fluff here about the Halo universe because not everybody who might buy this game they might not necessarily know about the Halo universe and what it's all about. Which is fair enough. Not everyone does. So this shows you a bit of background on the Halo universe and why is everyone fighting? What's the deal with all that? The UNSC, United Nations Space Command, against the Covenant. So, a bit there about the Covenant War, what happened, why was Reach glassed? Spoiler alert, if you haven't read the book or played the game. Why was Reach glassed? Some nice artwork there, actually, of New Alexandria on Reach, before it was glassed. And then we're going to gaming the Halo universe, choosing a fleet, the hobby, because this isn't just a game, this isn't, you can treat the starter set as a kind of a board game of sorts, I suppose. But the idea is that, it becomes a hobby. This is something that you kind of, do as a hobby. You're making the ships, painting the ships, coming up with fleets. It can be more than just what you get in the box. And then going to game basics. What do you need to play Halo? And some, nice artwork up there, actually. The bridge of a Covenant warship. There's lots of artwork like this, throughout the book. And I think all of these bits of art are actually done by 343 themselves, I think. Don't quote me on that. And actually, here you can see asteroids. And on a podcast, I don't remember which one, but on one of the podcasts, Spartan Neil actually mentioned that Spartan Games is looking at putting out their own range of asteroids for people to buy. So, and that's what you see here in the book. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully those will come out at some point soon. So here we see all the the model elements, measuring and pre-measuring, the battlefield. I like this little part here in the measuring section that says measuring is allowed at any time for any reason you like. This is a game of tactical skill, not a game of who can best estimate distances. I like that. I don't understand why some games say you can't pre-measure. Like, really? Come on, But anyway, yeah, battlefield, pen and paper, because you might need pen and paper to track kills or do stuff, so it can be handy. Dice, tokens. Actually quite a low baggage game, actually, Halo Fleet Battles, which is good. There's not like loads of different things you need to play the game. It's actually quite low baggage. So we've got tokens here, all the tokens that you'll be using throughout the game. So the game only actually uses 4 tokens, which is a contrast to something like Firestorm Armada, which uses, I think, 26 different tokens. I mean, don't use all of them per game. But, in the game, there are something like 26 tokens, and then Planetfall reduced that down to 8 tokens, and now in Halo Fleet Battles, we've only got 4 tokens, which are damage, activation, countdown, and vulnerable tokens. You'll probably use countdown tokens the least in Halo Fleet Battles. I mean, you use them pretty often, but they'll be the least used of the tokens, I think. The most used tokens will be the activated tokens, because whenever you activate a ship, battle group, after you've activated it, you put a token on it to show that it's been activated. Damage tokens, of course, you'll use frequently because things will get shot, things will get damaged. And vulnerable tokens are kind of like corrosive markers in Planetfall and in Firestorm Armada. So basically, they reduce the DR of something, of an element, by 1 across the board. So a ship that had 555 for its damage track now has 444. If it has a vulnerable token on it. So then we go into core game mechanics. A quick overview here of how a turn plays out, and then it goes into more detail later on. Alternating activation. This is a game where I activate a battle group, you activate a battle group, I activate a battle group, you activate a battle group, and so on and so on and so forth. Same thing happens with wings as well. You know, I activate a wing, you activate a wing, I do that, you do that, and so on until they're all activated. How to build flight and wings, and you know, it tells you which pages to go to for that. Elements. What are elements? What does it mean when it says element? It's basically a base of models like that. That's an element. Battle groups, specialist battle groups, which are noted later on in the book. Fleets, fleet commanders, heroic characters, which are going to be, you know, more of are going to be released as time goes on. How to read an element profile, an element profile. So how to read one of those? It's not hard to read at all, and so it explains to you how you know, what do all these stats actually mean. Ranges and measurement. You always measure center to center in this game. So that happens, you know, that counts for line of sight, that counts for, you know, shooting, whatever it is, measure center to center of each base. And all the states that an element can be in: ready to activate, activated, destroyed. The Scrapyard is actually a zone in this game. It's quite interesting actually. It's like if you play Magic the Gathering, you'll know about the graveyard. You know, when a card is, you know, destroyed, or you know, when you kill a creature or something, it goes to the graveyard. Well, not all creatures go to the graveyard, but anyway, in Magic there's a zone called the graveyard. And in Halo you've got the Scrapyard, which functions as a kind of a place where destroyed things go, and then later on you can actually bring them back if you're able to do that. You know, maybe your commander can do that, maybe the ship you have can do that through carrier action or something. So that's actually quite a cool little part of the game, actually, the Scrapyard. You know, as an actual zone in the game. So when things are destroyed, they don't just disappear and that's it, they're gone. You know, there's actually a zone where they can come back from. That's pretty cool. So, dice mechanics. What do the Halo dice faces mean? What do the Order dice faces mean? You might have to roll a d6 sometimes, so it shows you that as well. Dice pools. That's actually quite important, this little bit here. Because when you roll an attack or you roll for defense, you're not rolling, for example, you know, this many dice against that mechanic or whatever. You don't do that all that often. What you're actually doing is you're compiling a dice pool based on what you have. So, for example, if your ship has point defense and titanium armor, then, and you know, you're being attacked, that ship's being attacked by missiles, then you can combine those into, you know, those two defenses into the dice pool to defend against that attack. So you can use armor, your shields essentially, you can use your armor to defend against missiles, because, you know, if the missile gets through your point defense, it's gonna hit the ship and it's gonna strike the armor. So why not use the armor to defend against it? So that's actually an important bit to read once you get your rule book. Hopefully you will. You know, firepower rating is a cool mechanism is a proper word. It's a cool mechanism in the game. Basically, all dice rolls, all kind of attacks, defense, blah blah blah, you know, they start on an exploding roll, and then you can have abilities that take the rating up and down the table. So, for example, you might start at 4, which is the default roll. Then you might be firing with UNSC missiles at long range, which means that that would give +1 to the firepower table. So that will go up to devastating roll. But the target you're firing against is elusive, and your ship isn't elusive. So that would be -1, so it will bring it back down to a 4, and then that shows you what your dice actually mean, what they do. So the 2s count as 2s, each one counts as a 1, and you can re-roll only the misses, the kind of circles with the lines through them, for each 2. And you can only keep re-rolling misses until you run out of misses. And once you run out of them, it doesn't matter if you've got extra 2s and extra exploding dice to roll, as soon as you run out of those misses, you stop re-rolling. So that's this is essentially Spartan's way of trying to curb the whole, you know, exploding dice roll thing. That is really kind of a Marmite mechanism in the Firestorm games. You know, some people love them, some people hate it. I really like exploding dice, but some people don't like it. So this kind of reduces the probability of getting loads and loads and loads and loads of, you know, exploding dice results. So that's pretty awesome. Vulnerable tokens and a summary of the core mechanics, how, you know, important things to remember basically, and a bit of artwork there of Lord Hood, Commander-in-Chief of the UNSC Navy. Then we go on to fleet building, how fleets come together, battle groups, build rating, ship classes, model size. There's 4 kinds of models, well 4 sizes of models in this game: small, medium, large, and massive. And then we go on to creating standard battle group, specialist battle groups. These are noted later on in the rulebook at the end. But specialist battle groups are essentially battle groups that are formed to do one thing, really well. Think of them kind of as Unix programs, little programs that are designed to do one thing really well. So core fleet special rules, fleet commanders and heroic characters, tells you how many you can take per how many points you're playing. Ad hoc battle groups, which you do using form up. You can take an element that's the last member of its battle group, and you can form it up into a bigger battle group to keep it in the fight. Commanders and heroes, these are going to be released as time goes on, and I saw Cortana and I think Captain Keyes as well at Salute this year. So those guys are going to hopefully be released soon. So moving on, we've got using a fleet commander, anatomy of a fleet commander datasheet, how to read the fleet commanders. Heroic characters as well, so these could be people like Master Chief, Cortana. See, Captain Keyes is there as well, so hopefully he's going to be released. Terrain, I like the way this is laid out. Basically, say there's a gas cloud and you want to know, can I shoot through a gas cloud? Look it up. Template size, commonly large. Shooting through a gas cloud imposes a -1 penalty to the firepower rating. Boom, it's right there. You don't have to read through loads of text to get to the answer during a game, which is quite cool. And elements moving through a gas cloud suffer no penalties. Simple as that. And it does that for each piece of terrain, each kind of terrain listed here. Moving through terrain, shooting through terrain. And then you've got the pre-game setup, it's the pre-game setup, what happens before the game starts. Board edges, deployment, the game type you're playing, all that kind of stuff. And it's actually got an interesting paragraph here about the fact that Halo is set in an established universe. There's lots of canon, lots of lore behind it, but you can deviate from that if you want to. You don't have to follow it. So you can do what if scenarios. So for example, what if Reach didn't fall? What if this happened? What if that happened? What if the Covenant hadn't discovered Earth? All that kind of stuff. So going on to playing an introductory encounter. So if you don't know what to play, you've just started playing the game and you're like, hey, what do I do? Read that, follow that, and it will get you into the game. Or you can, you can go through the Fall of Reach campaign guide, and that'll also help you to ease you into the game as well. This is really cool, scenario generator. This reminds me of something called the Battle Builder from Dust Warfare, which is a game that I still have a lot of love for, which has been, kind of mistreated in recent years by the publisher that it went over to. But I still have a lot of love for that game. And in Dust Warfare, there's a thing called the Battle Builder, which is similar to this. So basically, this is, like it says, it's a scenario generator. So one person is player 1, the other person is player 2. Decide who's going to be player 1 and player 2. And then player 1 rolls a dice, and you go across the table. And then player 2 rolls a dice, and you go down the table. And whichever square you land on, that's the scenario that you play. So player 1 rolls a miss, they start with blockade run. Then player 2 gets a 1, you go down to meeting engagement. Fine, let's play meeting engagement. So it's a quick way to decide, which scenario are we going to play, instead of taking 10-15 minutes to try to work out what you're going to play on game night. So I really like that. That's really cool. And then you've got the actual scenarios that are on the table: meeting engagement, seek and destroy, blockade run, ambush, annihilation, planetary assault. And then we go on to a breakdown of a game turn. So how a game turn actually breaks down: phase, segment, step, action, and sub-action. If you play Planetfall, then this is going to be really familiar to you. The mechanisms are, they more closely resemble Planetfall than Firestorm Armada. So yeah, these are all the phases of the game. The wings phase is actually, I don't know, I would say it's probably the most complicated. It's not actually complicated as such, but in relation to all the other phases, it's probably the most complicated of all the phases. And the book even says here, if you're reading this for the first time, skip the wings phase, read the other stuff, and then come back to wings afterwards. So nice artwork there of a Saber Interceptor. Wouldn't mind having that on my wall. So, yep, actions explained, how wings work, attack runs, escort duty, all that kind of stuff. There's actually a cool mechanic in this, sorry, mechanism, I keep saying mechanic, there's a cool mechanism in this game called locking. So wings can be locked and unlocked, which is when, you know, when they engage each other. So that's, you know, it's an interesting little part of the game. And so yeah, go on to wings, dogfights, what happens when wings fight wings. Consolidation segment, summary of the wing phase, you know, important things to remember. Then we go on to battle group phase. Battle group phase is basically when elements move. An element is basically anything on a base like that. You know, that's an element in this game. So you know, how do you move? And to turn a ship, you simply move it 45 degrees. You turn it 45 degrees. That's it. There are no templates. And after playing this game a couple of times, you then realise, actually, hang on a second. There aren't any templates in this game. This is a template-free game, which is actually pretty cool. So, you know, check coherency here. You know, things have to be in coherency. It's not as devastating as Planetfall, where in Planetfall, if things are out of coherency, they take disorder markers, which turn into damage at the end of the turn. You know, it's not as bad to be out of coherency in this game as it is in Planetfall, for example, but it is quite bad. There are penalties, so try to keep your ships in coherency. And then we go on to attack segment. How do you actually, you know, fire at things? So we've got all the ranges and how to, you know, how to determine what you're gonna, how many dice you're gonna throw, line of sight, all that kind of thing. And then yeah, the actual attack segment outline. So fleet orders, nominating firing solutions. There are, I mean, you can, for example, roll order dice at the beginning of the turn for things like. You know, if you're taking a beating, then you can, you know, if you roll shields, then you can try to reduce the amount of successes that your opponent gets during the attack segment. So, you know, that's the fleet order step is when you do that. Nominate firing solutions. Firing solution is basically when you determine the firepower rating, how many dice you're going to roll. That's your firing solution. So, how to do all that kind of stuff. Damage, a really complicated example, well, kind of complicated example of firing here, and it actually walks you through this diagram to show you what's going on in here. And then we go on to launch boarding craft. Boarding is a fairly big part of this game. You know, launching boarding craft at ships to, you know, to try to wreak havoc on those ships, basically try to blow them up from within. Boarding resolution phase is when you find out what actually happened during, you know, a boarding assault, essentially. So it shows you how to do all that stuff. Countdown tokens, which are essentially, you know, bomb has been planted, and seeing what happens with the countdown tokens. Critical core breach is when a ship, you know, explodes, like a large or massive ship explodes, for example. You know, the rules for that. Assault extraction, you can try to extract troops from a ship that, you know, where, you know, you've tried to board a ship, it's hopeless. That ship's gonna, you know, that ship's gonna fall to the enemy. So you can try to get your men out of there, extract them. Men can be expelled into space as well, including Spartans and elites and stuff. And then you go into the end phase where you just, you know, you repair things, find out who's won the game. Adrift tokens, see if any of your Spartans or elites or whoever have gone adrift into space, and you prepare for the next turn. Okay, and then we go into the appendices. The first one is the loadouts. If you're coming from the Firestorm games, you can kind of sort of maybe think of these as Mars, model assigned rules, that are, you know, assigned to ships. So here we've got movement Mars, sorry, loadouts. We've got firing. So this is all the, you know, all the loadouts that are, you know, firing loadouts. We've got boarding as well. And we've got other loadouts that don't fit into any of the other categories. And then in Appendix 2, we've got a whole bit on how massive elements work, because they're big. They work slightly differently to the other elements, so this tells you all about how they work. How to board one, for example, how to shoot at one. And then these last two appendices are actually probably a couple of the best bits of the book, actually. Here you see the Covenant fleet list. So these are all like the specialist battle groups that you can take, well, in the book anyway, that you can take for the Covenant. And then it goes into how to put together a Covenant fleet, like an example fleet. So here you've got Derek Sinclair, Spartan Derek, who, you know, has taken the Covenant and he explains how this particular Covenant fleet came together. So even if you're brand new to this game and you're kind of thinking, well, I don't want to play the scenario fleets anymore, I want to play my own fleet, I want to put together my own fleet for the game, you can take a look at this to see an example of how a fleet comes together. Here you've got the same kind of thing for the UNSC, Specialist Battle Groups, and Spartan Neil Fawcett, taking the UNSC and explaining how his how his fleet came together as well. And then you've got the index at the back to help you find things, and that's it. That's the rule book. That's the rules. I think it's a really fun set, very fun rule set. I've played a couple of games of Halo Fleet Battle so far. I hope to play many more. It's a really fun game. Games tend to go down to the wire in this game. It's not like, oh, okay, I've lost most of my fleet, this is hopeless, I'm going to lose this, GG, no re. Games really go, it's like Planetfall in that sense as well, actually, that games really tend to go down to the last activation in Halo Fleet Battles. So now we've checked out the rulebook, let's check out the Fall of Reach campaign guide. Okay, so let's have a look at what the Fall of Reach campaign guide looks like inside. So here you can see, front cover, nice shot of the UNSC in action. On the back, you've got Reach, and inside, it's basically scenarios that will walk you through the game to teach you how to do things. So here you've got the Fall of the Fortress world, which apparently plugs a few holes. Like this bit of fluff plus the fluff that you get from in each scenario, apparently it plugs some plot holes into in the whole kind of story of Reach falling and all that stuff. And then scenario 1, flight. I think that there is supposed to be a typo here somewhere. Like one of the battle groups is, there we go, line formation, Paris class frigates line formation. That's actually a typo, and most people are substituting that for Arrowhead or Trident. It doesn't really matter, because this scenario is basically to teach you how to move and shoot, essentially. So don't get hung up on that. And it is a teaching scenario. It's not meant to be a finely tuned, balanced scenario for tournament play or anything like that. So don't get hung up on that stuff. It's just a teaching thing. Scenario 2, contact. Scenario 3, evacuate. Goes into scenario 4, run. Scenario 5, which is actually the first scenario that I ever played, into the fire. Basically, the UNSC have the artifact that the Covenant really want. They're trying to get out of Dodge. They're trying to escape, and the Covenant are obviously trying to stop them because they're all about those artifacts, and they want that artifact back from the UNSC. So so the UNSC are trying to escape, Covenant trying to stop them. It's a fun scenario. So yeah, that's the one I'll play first. Then you go into scenario 6, left jab. Scenario 7, finishing blow, and scenario 8, rally point Zulu. And then we go into the campaign optional rules. So if you're playing this campaign, if you're playing these scenarios as a campaign, or if you're playing your own campaign, then you can add some spice to it by using these optional rules, which are listed here. And then we go on to nice photography there, and we go on to some UNSC ship statistics. At least these are the starting stats for the ships. They may be modified in future, who knows, but they are at the time of making this video, they are the current stats for the UNSC. These are all on the glossy cards as well that you get with the game, but they're also listed here for reference. Maybe you forgot your cards and then you've got them here. Bit of fluff about Michael Stanforth, Vice Admiral Commander of the UNSC Navy Sector 3. Covenant ship stats with some photography there. And a bit of fluff on Ro Barutami, Supreme Commander, Master Fleet of Valiant Prudence. And that's it. That's the Fall of Reach campaign guide. Okay, so that was a look at the core rules and the Fall of Reach campaign guide for Halo Fleet Battles. As always, leave a thumbs up or a thumbs down in this video, depending on how you felt about it. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with future videos on this channel, and also to help to support the channel as well. Every subscription helps. And also check out Fleet Signal on social media, and check out fleetsignal.com as well. Okay, that's all for now. Until next time, see ya!